Brittany raises an excellent point in the Discord. We can always argue if the president can have 34 felonies, then what's a little fraud? But yeah, Andrew, people are inspired by your crimes.
Oh, good.
In here.
My crimes. Welcome to Millennial, the home of pretend adulting and real talk. I'm Andrew.
I'm Laura.
And Pam couldn't join us this week, but we're replacing that M with a T. Pat is here this week, my boyfriend. Hi, Pat. Welcome back.
Hello. I'm so excited to be back. It's been a while.
Yeah.
So good to have you back. And I understand you just had a birthday.
I did. The
Happy
big
birthday.
old 35, yes, or 2 days ago. Yeah.
I said, what do you want for your birthday, babe? And he said, I want to be back on Millennial. I said, oh, great. That's a really cheap gift. I can make that happen for you for sure. No, the timing was purely coincidental. But we were in Palm Springs, actually, for Pat's birthday. And some friends came with us, and it was a lot of fun. We went out to the gay bars, Laura, Saturday night.
Hell yeah.
Woof. I had a headache for the ages the following day, and I definitely blacked out for an hour or two that night.
So what you're saying is you're not 25 anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We did that super
it was a
fun.
Great time. Great time.
We did that fun thing with friends the morning after where we're like recapping the night, like, oh, this person made out with that person and we got all these drinks and had these Jello shots. And they start recalling some moments from the night. And I'm like, oh, crap, I blacked out. I must have blacked out because I don't remember some of these things that we're talking about.
Yeah. Likely excuse, Andrew.
Yeah, I made out with somebody? I had no idea. I'm so sorry. No, but Pat counted up the drinks that he had that night, right, Pat?
Oh, yeah, it was at least because I had forgotten about some. At one bar, I thought I only had 2. Apparently, it was like 5. So fully, I think I had like 16 or 17 drinks from like 6:30 until midnight.
Pat is, I believe, if I recall correctly, the person who introduced Mark and I to Malort.
Yep.
When we were in Chicago. So I guess I could say that tracks. Like, if he can handle Malort, I think he can handle anything.
Yeah. And apparently in Wisconsin, they drink a lot. So
yes, we drink for sport, not for pleasure. So
speaking of sports, Laura, did you watch the Super Bowl over the weekend?
I actually did.
Oh,
I know. That's not super normal for me. I do tend to tune in for the halftime show, but there was so much buzz around this game, the face-off of the Chiefs and the Eagles, that I felt like I wanted to be there to witness whatever happened. And by be there, I mean I loaded it up on Tubi because they were streaming it for free.
Yeah.
That's right. They were.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm from Southern New Jersey, and that's Philadelphia Eagles territory. So I was rooting for them. And I'm glad that they, as I think the New York Times put it, the Wall Street Journal put it, dominated the Chiefs. Thank goodness. Yeah. We didn't need the Chiefs winning a third time. And I enjoy watching the Chiefs. I like seeing Taylor Swift there. I like Andy Reid, the former Eagles coach.
So you didn't boo when Taylor came up on the Jumbotron? Because that apparently happened.
At the Super Bowl, for the Super Bowl, I did because she's the enemy for that game. But every other game, I was happy to see her.
As a group, we had a long discussion, not booing her, but booing her outfit choice. We're like, girl, you only wore a white tank top and gray shorts. That's it. You didn't have anything else fun to wear to the
Where's
Super
the
Bowl.
Chiefs
like,
red?
come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was surprising not to see that.
Did you two like Kendrick's performance?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I feel like we could have an entire episode picking apart the performance. And I don't mean picking it apart critically. I just mean really getting into all of the various levels that were represented in that. It was like 2-part. First of all, it was a huge fuck you, I won to Drake. And secondly, there was a lot of critique of the US government and where we are as a country right now mixed in. And to be honest, I think there was a lot of it that didn't necessarily get caught on camera. I've definitely seen people putting up sort of their personal videos of the performance and capturing parts of it that we didn't see in the recorded performance. So there's definitely a lot going on there. I thought it was masterful. And I really think there is a clear line drawn between people who liked it and didn't like it. I feel like a lot of the people who didn't like it just didn't get it.
And they just don't know Kendrick Lamar. I think that's my main takeaway.
Right. They should.
Yeah. Like, it wasn't a spectacle like Beyonce or Rihanna like that. But, I mean, he is a Pulitzer Prize musician, and his craftsmanship with his words is so well done that, like, everything that he did was so planned to make a point, which I loved.
Well, and that says a lot about a show like that, where you don't need the theatrics. You let the words speak for themselves. And artists who can pull that off should be recognized for that they let the word, again, the lyrics speak for themselves.
Yeah, I will tell you the moment I shouted, and I think I'm not alone in this. It was the "Hey Drake" moment where he looks dead in the camera and has this shit-eating grin on. And I was like, holy fuck, he actually dropped the name. That was a big question for people. One, people were wondering, are they going to let him perform Not Like Us at the Super Bowl? And then secondarily, if they do, are they going to heavily sanitize it so that he's not naming names or necessarily referring to pedophilia? But it was no holds barred, and Kendrick's got balls. And honestly, like, I love the fact that the whole thing ended with the game over messaging. That was Kendrick's way of being like, I win.
Yeah. And he did.
Yeah, and then I put it together, too, that what the different parts of the stage were the video game controller. So I was like, okay, there we go.
Yeah,
put it all through.
Well, you had Samuel L. Jackson there as Uncle Sam,
that was
constantly lecturing Kendrick about how he needs to play the game and he needs to stay in line and he needs to not be so loud. It was masterful. Like, having Serena there and SZA as well. Like, there's just so many layers to this. Again, we could have like a chapter by chapter style analysis of the halftime show. It was incredible. If you haven't seen it, please go look it up. And there are so many talented creators online who've really dug in and started talking about what all of it means. So there's no shortage of those creators to find online. I loved it.
Good. Well, before we get into some news today, wanted to share some recent listener feedback that slid into our DMs. Katie said, I joined the Silent Book Club per Pam's recommendation, and I've been really enjoying it so far. The first meeting was new for my town, so there were only 3 of us, but there's a designated larger scale group for our region where it is super popular. I'm excited to join it this next month. Glad to hear that, Katie.
Aww, Pam has the best recommendations.
She does. She's always down with society and what the hell is going on out there. And Rachel wrote in about last week's episode. She said, thank you for the Let Them segment. I really needed that message this week. Love the show and always look forward to it. Thank you for bringing levity and laughter to these crazy times. I actually cracked up because, again, we were in Palm Springs and my friend opens his book bag and he pulls out the Let Them Theory book. I was like, this book is following me around this week. Talk about it on the show. Our friend of the show, Micah, texted me. I'm into Mel Robbins too, after he heard last week's episode. We got a bunch of good feedback about that, so I'm happy we shared it with everybody. So, Laura, we actually can't let this next person let them.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a little bit in contradiction with how we want to talk about Trump's first 100 days. But we definitely want to keep y'all posted. As we've said, we're going to touch base on some of the latest each week as we get through the first 100 days, which honestly feels like the first 100 years. I don't know about y'all. But something I really wanted us to touch on that started breaking while we were in the middle of recording last week's episode is the latest on Trump's proposed plans for Gaza. So he's just blatantly saying the quiet part out loud, the part that we all knew he was saying the entire time, which is that he wants to move Palestinians out of Gaza. Where? No idea. And then he wants to rebuild it, and he wants the US to run it. And I think this is just him saying, I would really love to put a big, beautiful Trump resort and casino in Gaza, right on the sea. He talks all the time about what a beautiful strip of land it is and how we could really develop it and build it up, and it would be so much nicer. He just fails to really deliver on the piece of it that is, well, what about the people who live there and who have been getting bombed all to hell for over a year now?
Mm-hmm.
What happens to those people? It's disgusting. And I know that we've touched on the ongoing issues with Israel and Gaza over the last couple of years. And we're certainly not trying to wade in and have a discussion about who deserves land more than the other person. That's not how we view it here. We think that both parties have a right to exist. However, you have to acknowledge with that there are complexities in that arrangement that are immensely difficult to work out. So coming up with these ridiculous, quote unquote, solutions to the issue by saying, let's move one party out. Let's take one party, which would be in this case, the civilian population that has not been living in an environment where they even have freedom of movement. Let's take them and tell them they have to go somewhere else. And we're going to build up the land that they've been living on for God knows how long. And we're going to say that we run it now.
And why is this our decision to make anyway? And he's waffled back and forth on this over the last week as well, which has also been confusing. And I know Trump will say a lot and then his team will walk it back. But then he's walked back their walk back now. And it's just messy. This seems to me to be one of his latest obsessions that ultimately is not going to go anywhere.
I hope not.
At least I hope not. Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, it would not be the first time in the whole world of recorded history that some dipshit decided, I don't want this group of people to live here anymore because I really want that land for me. So we're going to move them and it's going to be great. Let's ask the Native Americans how that worked out.
Well, and he seems to be inspired by what Putin's been doing in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Or sorry, doing in Ukraine. And talking about Greenland and, we're going to touch on it in a minute, but the Gulf of Mexico, he's just wrecking havoc anywhere that he can, seemingly in part inspired by strongman Putin doing whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah. Well,
the thing is, we can't deport people from a country that we don't run. And that's basically what he's trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Trump also signed another executive order attacking trans people. This time it was to specifically bar trans athletes from girls and women's sports. And what this relates to is around federal funding that is guaranteed through Title IX. And essentially they're looking to say, if your school or local funded program does not ensure somehow that only cisgender people are playing on this girls' sports team, then you're not going to get the funding. Raises a whole lot of questions about how the hell they plan to confirm that in all of these cases.
Yeah, and seeing the photo of Trump signing this executive order surrounded by primarily young girls who have no clue what he is actually doing with this executive order or have no clue about trans issues or anything like that is disgusting. There are some examples of trans women in women's sports. Yes, they are out there, but they are very few and far between, and they're not actually causing any issues in these sports. And I remember talking about this a while ago on the show. In the few instances where trans women are competing in these sports, whether they're there or not, the fact remains there will always be players who are better than you. So it's just a boogeyman the right can point to distract from the real attacks on women that they are creating, like when it comes to abortion rights.
And that's the thing. They always want to pass this shit off as protecting women and girls. This does nothing to protect women and girls. As a matter of fact, if you are putting schools and athletic directors in a position where you're somehow requiring them to confirm people's sex assigned at birth, that is an incredibly slippery slope, and we should all be concerned about it. This feels like really an attempt to try and get people to kiss the ring again, to kind of assuage these concerns by writing into state law that they align with this opinion. But then it really becomes a question of how are you planning on enforcing that in a way that is not detrimental to women and girls?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how they do that. Yeah. Well, what's going on with a major body of water that's had a name change?
As of Tuesday, the Gulf of Mexico has now been changed to the Gulf of America in Google Maps, thanks to an executive order. This actually really annoyed me that Google Maps made this change so quickly. They confirmed they were going to do it a couple of weeks ago. It's active as of today. And it made me want to give Apple Maps another try. But then just today, Apple confirmed they're changing Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America worldwide. Google's just doing it in America. But Apple's like, yeah, we're going to do it for the entire world. I actually thought Tim Cook would stand up to this, but he's disappointing me again.
Yeah,
so
I would have too.
He gave the Cheeto $1 million. Like, Tim Cook is, he's not cool anymore.
So I guess I'll go to MapQuest now. Like, I can't use Google Maps. I was going to boycott. Now I have to boycott Apple Maps too. So back to 2004 in MapQuest. But I think we should all pull a page out of the Republican playbook and dead name the Gulf of Mexico. Just call it that anyway.
That's the plan.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah. And really, it's not dead naming because that's its name.
Alternatively, we can start calling it Si Senor. SEA, Senor. I saw that idea on Threads. Okay.
Oh, that's funny. So I take great exception to this personally because I grew up going to Pensacola Beach every summer. I learned how to my ocean swimming. I learned how to ocean swim in the Gulf of Mexico. So I have very strong nostalgic ties to that region, and I will not be referring to it as the Gulf of America.
Well, Google continues to kiss the ring, and Google Calendar has confirmed that it is removing observations for Black History Month, Women's History Month, Pride Month, Indigenous Peoples Month, Holocaust Remembrance Day, and the list goes on. And their reasoning was maintaining the list of various global holidays isn't sustainable. We're sorry, y'all.
Boo-hoo.
The timing of this tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
Yes.
This just happened within
once a year.
Past couple of weeks. I mean, it's shocking too, because I'm so naive, I guess, because Google, they have always prided themselves on having a diverse organization, employing LGBTQ plus people. And then they pull crap like this. I mean, Women's History Month, you got to get rid of. Pride Month. It's extreme what these companies are doing to suck up.
Nobody has
to
a
Trump.
backbone.
Yeah, it's really shocking. But, what can we do? Boycott Google? Like, sure, I wouldn't miss using Google search, which actually is where they make all their money. So maybe I should try to boycott Google search. But it's just Google is so ingrained in our day-to-day lives. It's not like we can, stop using all these. Can try to use them less, I guess.
Yeah, I keep waiting for the Justice Department to drop that suit about Google's search engine monopoly. Remember we talked about that?
Yeah.
Last year. I think that's going to go. I think that'll
probably
be quietly dropped. And I think this is all Google massaging the process to push that along. 100%.
And if people are looking for an alternative, I like that Brock is pointing out DuckDuckGo as an alternative to Google and, Bing and these others. They are a very privacy forward search engine, and they've been around a while. I've heard very good things about them. It's just getting into the habit of changing your brain instead of typing in Google to type in DuckDuckGo. But I should try that. Because F Google. I mean, like I said, Google search results are a total mess anyway. We wouldn't be missing anything by switching to a different search engine.
Also wanted to touch on some news that came out today, the day that we're recording this episode. The Department of Government Efficiency, otherwise known as DOGE, announced $900 million in cuts to the Department of Education. They're doing this via ending 89 contracts, as well as 29 grants associated with DEI initiatives. And it's anticipated that these cuts are going to very likely hit the research arm of the Department of Education very hard. And there's been a ton of research and study going into looking at changing educational trends since the COVID pandemic, which, as we know, a lot of national averages around reading and mathematics are down. There have been a lot of behavioral changes amongst the student body because of, what happened in 2020, 2021. So this is all pretty critical educational information that we need to inform the way that classrooms are run, and we're not going to get it now.
And something that's tragic about this is that it's the red states that will get hit really hard by this. They already rank lowest in education, and they're about to get less help from the federal government now. So, and they voted for this guy who wanted to make lots of cuts at the federal level. And I hope not, but with all these cuts we keep hearing about, I think we're slowly going to see some major impacts from all of these cuts. We need federal government in our lives. We need to spend this money. Maybe not every nickel and dollar goes to the right place, but these broad cutbacks and rollbacks are not good for this country.
No. We're losing, you cut education, and that cuts us being the leader of progress for the world when it comes to discoveries and maybe cures and stuff like that. But it's just cutting us off at the knees in being a world leader, really.
Yeah, we can't be America first if we're stupid.
Yeah, well, because basically they're saying they want to turn it back to the states, and so now you're going from having a national sort of baseline, which again we can critique the Department of Education and things like Common Core. Curriculums, they're not perfect, but to say, you know what, I think we should just let 50 different states have 50 different education strategies. Good luck.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not going to go well. Well, speaking of other things that aren't going well, some news from today as well. 4 FEMA employees, including FEMA's CFO, were fired today due to, I'm also going to be dead naming Elon here and referring to him as Elonia, because apparently doing that doesn't matter. So we're just going to misgender him. Elonia's, he put out this bogus social post claiming that $59 million that was intended for disaster relief to New York City was used to pay for, quote, high-end hotels for migrants. This is a frequent mischaracterization that we've heard out of the GOP on these funds. It's important to know that FEMA is part of the Department of Homeland Security, and as a result, they disperse disaster relief funds and funds for the Shelter and Services Program, which essentially provides shelter to migrants that we as a country don't have room for to put them up somewhere. So we're putting them up in hotels. They're not luxury hotels. And I just wanted to bring this up as a really good opportunity to remind that we should be questioning any claim coming out of this White House that sounds too good to be true. Everything's like bumper sticker logic. Another big one they had recently was $50 million was earmarked to send condoms to Gaza. That's a huge waste of taxpayer money. And it turns out it wasn't true.
Yeah.
US aid was having a hard time even figuring out what to attribute that claim to. I know that one of the findings is that we have been running an HIV prevention program in Gaza, Mozambique, not Gaza in the Middle East. But another thing is we're running a 5-year plan, general healthcare plan in Gaza that is earmarked for around this amount of money. But in either case, there's way more nuance going on in either one of those scenarios than just US taxpayers are sending $50 million of condoms to Gaza.
Yeah.
Like it's
where are free
patently
condoms?
Absurd.
Well, and on a similar note, Trump was claiming within the last week that the political news site Politico was receiving funding from the federal government. And he was implying that Dems were basically paying off Politico to write favorable stories about them. When in reality, when you look past the headline or the Truth Social post, the government was paying for Politico Pro, which is Politico's pricey policy intelligence platform that people in the government use to track policy and legislation. It's nonpartisan. This is something that helps them get their work done. So that's where the millions of dollars were going to. And then, of course, people in government are paying for political subscriptions or Politico subscriptions, New York Times, Washington Post, because they need to read the damn news. They're getting paid well just like the rest of us. So they need to have these subscriptions. But Trump was framing it in a completely inaccurate way. But tying all these together, Laura, it's, again, this post-truth society that we're in right now. People read a headline and they can't bother to click any further. They read and keep scrolling.
And honestly, this is just a general principle of life. If somebody says something that is just too good to be true, it's probably bullshit. And you should definitely file anything coming out of the Department of Government Efficiency as bullshit. Elon wants to say, we're being transparent because we post about it on Twitter and on the Doge website. Okay, so you're regulating yourselves. Got it. That seems to be the MO for this administration, is that they don't want to be accountable to anyone else. So it's important to understand the amount and the litany of bullshit that's coming out. I see some points being brought up in the Discord about how this is all by design. They're really trying to overwhelm and distract people and make it harder for people to organize around, what's really happening. But I think just when you hear stories like this, really stopping before you go to share or stopping before you go to make assumptions about the validity of it and take some time to look into it more if you have it. If you don't, maybe file that under, I need to look into this more before I start running off at the mouth about it.
Yeah.
And I think a healthy thing too is so much stuff is coming out all at once. It's impossible for one person to manage all of it in their brain. Pick one thing and focus on that one thing so that you can speak eloquently about that one instead of trying to spread it out through everything and then only having half facts for the 10 things that come out every day.
Yeah. And I think I just tell people stay aware, but also give yourself a break from it all. You can't keep inundating yourself with all this crap every day. It's not healthy for you. So stay aware, maybe pick an issue, find an organization to volunteer with that could help you feel better because you're giving back in a good, decent, genuine way and, just stay rested so you can continue to fight. I hate seeing when people are, keyboard warriors, reposting this and that to feel better about themselves. Go frickin' do something. Go do something.
Yeah.
I can say this because I volunteer now, okay? I'm not just being a podcast warrior. I'm out there. I'm out on these streets.
And volunteering.
Touching grass, blacking out, and volunteering. The 3 pillars of a good life.
You doing it in that order? Yeah. So you don't remember volunteering?
No, of course I remember the volunteering. I'm touching grass while blacking out. I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone there because I'm also passed out. But no, seriously, I think you just got to really manage. We always talk about work-life balance, work-life news balance. We got to work that into this now too, because it's just all too much all the time. And it is not healthy to just heap all of this on you all the time.
Right.
Should we take our own break from this now?
I think we should. I want to talk about bookstores.
James said, "Are you volunteering to eat ass?" I would do. That's not going to sound right. I would volunteer to eat somebody's ass on this panel, and you all can guess whose that is. And we'll take a break.
Laura, you're so lucky. Oh.
Ooh, I'll take that comment as a compliment.
Yeah, you'll have to give me some pointers, Pat.
Did anyone guess the segment was going to end here? I don't think so. We're going to take a break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about digital shoplifting. More troublemaking. And then we're going to talk about relaxing with books and Barnes & Noble's big comeback. So we will be right back. All right, so this study caught my eye recently, and I wanted to talk about it because I gotta admit, I'm a bit of a baddie here. Turns out half of wealthy Gen Zers and millennials have recently admitted to digital shoplifting. And I wanted to talk about this and see if we have ever done it. I'm going to quote this article from Fortune. Gen Zers and millennials are duping online merchants into refunds for products they've received and are keeping. The practice is called digital shoplifting, and the consequences for it are slim, except for merchants who lose 3.75 times the transaction cost every time it happens. For many Americans, it feels almost too easy to dupe retailers into getting their money back for online purchases they have made. Say you've bought that expensive new sweater or a pair of headphones, but you don't want to shoulder the cost. You just submit a claim to the retailer that you never received the package or you didn't order it in the first place, and here comes back your money. But that's called digital shoplifting, and about half of Gen Zers and millennials who earn more than $100,000 per year admit to having done so in the past year. According to SoCure, the anti-fraud tech company surveyed 2,000 Americans between December 6th and December 13th and found digital shoplifting is more rampant than most people know. As for the connection between wealthier shoppers and a higher propensity to commit digital shoplifting, SoCure's head of product management for fraud and identity solutions told Fortune he suspects there might be a link between those who better understand bank and merchant obligations to those that are taking advantage of them. So that's a classic rich get richer moment to me.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta admit, I've done this from time to time, okay? There's been something I ordered and didn't pay for, so I hit up Amazon support and I say, help me, it didn't arrive. What can I do? And I get my money back. I tell them I don't want another one and I just get my money back. Am I so wrong for trying to survive in this dog-eat-dog world? I gotta hustle out there just like everybody else. And I think, do I do this regularly? No. I don't want to be kicked off of Amazon, but I've done it maybe once or twice with a tech item.
Was there something that preceded you making this choice? Like, for example, I've been in the position before where I ordered something from Amazon and I got it and I just didn't like it, or it wasn't what I needed. And they would say, oh, don't worry about it. Just keep it. And they refund. Like, they don't want you to ship it back. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
For me, that's how it's looked. But
I've had that too. When I worked at Groupon, that was a thing. Basically, if it was more expensive to ship back than what the product is worth, they would just refund. So I think that's probably what Amazon does too. In some cases, like for it to be shipped back to them would cost more than it's worth. So just do the refund and get it out of the way.
I've heard of this too, but how often does this happen where Amazon says, oh, it's too expensive for you to ship it back to us. We would just take a loss here. So you just keep the item and we'll refund you anyway. Because I feel like it would be for crappier items that they don't care about as much. Like they're not going to tell you this with AirPods.
Right.
Usually that or something that expires, like what you had a few months ago with the dog treats.
Oh, yeah.
Where like they sent a ton. That was their choice. I don't think that would fall into this category.
Well, yeah, and I think for safety reasons, they didn't want me to send the dog treats back in case they had been tampered with, but they were sealed. Right. So I don't know why they would just automatically throw away the idea of taking it back. But
yeah, I've had this happen kind of once, I guess, because with this most recent Apple AirPod thing, when they came out, I ordered them. UPS said they were dropped off somewhere in a completely different city. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, whoever got them is not going to give them up. And UPS is like, oh yeah, we'll go back and get them and then we'll get them to you. Apple was like, yeah, that's probably not going to happen. So they sent me new ones. And then I ended up getting the other pair because apparently UPS did follow through. So then I just kept both and sold one.
Yeah, he didn't return them.
I don't have a problem with that. You're just, you ended up with an extra set of AirPods and you didn't orchestrate it that way.
No. And there was one time where I had ordered tickets for a show here in Vegas and we had every intention of going, but a friend who I bought them for got sick and the tickets were non-refundable. I didn't want to lose money on these tickets. It was like $350 for 4 tickets or something like that. And I hated this idea that I was going to lose money on this when he got sick. I wanted that money back. So I called up my credit card and I said, I didn't order these tickets. I don't know what these are. And they ended up buying it. And now the one pain in the ass for me was they sent me a new credit card because my credit card had totally been stolen. How else could somebody else have purchased these tickets? So then I had to switch, various recurring bills over to the new credit card. And that sucked, but it was worth it to me. And I don't feel bad. This is a big corporation. I'm not robbing this company. They'll be fine. Now that said, I wouldn't do this for like an indie creator. I wouldn't go on Etsy, order something expensive and be like, oh, sorry, guys, I actually didn't get this. So send me another one or refund me.
That's just super shitty. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and you didn't go to the concert either. It'd be one thing if you went to the concert and then after the fact, you were like, I didn't buy these tickets.
And the representative of the bank is like, well, I see on your Instagram story, you were definitely there, Andrew. And it looks like you had a great time. Uh-oh. Have you ever been in the situation, Laura, where you've like borrowed something from a retailer? Like you'll order it? Oh,
totally.
With the intention of returning it? Okay.
Yeah, I've done this with clothes. I've done it with technology too. Like if I knew I was going to be somewhere where I like needed a monitor or something, but I knew I had a monitor at home and I like didn't intend on keeping the monitor. I would like get a monitor, use it, and then take it back.
Yeah.
I think you've done that, Andrew. I think I got the tip from you, actually. And I've definitely in the past done that with clothes. Like if I needed a really nice outfit for a special occasion that I was never going to wear again, I would definitely do this. Although I will say many years ago, I started using Rent the Runway for this purpose. And it ends up working out perfectly because, you pay a little bit of money, but that includes insurance for the garment. So if you accidentally spill something on it, you're not going to be in a situation where you can't return it, And they have a lot of, just beautiful clothes on there that I would never just buy to have in my own closet. So it's pretty nice to have this as an alternative.
I'm not going to name names, but I'm inspiring people here. Somebody in our Discord is saying I need to do more illegal shit. You do. What were you going to say, Pat?
The biggest one that I remember like us doing is when we first moved to Vegas, we couldn't get our refrigerator for almost a month because it was during COVID. Everything was backed up. So we went to Lowe's and just bought a mini fridge, and I kept basically all the wrapping I could on it, took pictures of how it was wrapped. We used the mini fridge for a month. Once we got our regular size fridge, I reboxed the entire thing exactly how it was, and we returned it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that worked out perfectly. We were basically renting a mini fridge.
Yeah.
I've done this a bunch with clothing too. I've also done it with air mattresses. Like, let's say a guest is coming to stay with me and we need an air mattress. I'm going to use it once and then maybe again in a year. So I'm just going to take it, use it for a week, and then send it back to Amazon. I mean, it's good. It's good for business to, if you're Amazon or let's say Costco or REI or Apple, to offer these huge return windows. Costco lets you return something like, 3 months after, maybe even longer in some cases. REI, if you're a member, one-time membership fee of $30, you can return anything up to a year after you purchase it, and they'll just take it back. No questions asked. They are, in a way, enabling us to do this type of thing. They're making it too easy to return things. They're giving us too big of return windows. And thanks to these ways you can return things too, it could not be easier. I mean, with Amazon, you don't even have to put something in a box anymore. You just bring it to UPS.
Yeah.
It's
Or
their
Whole
fault.
Foods.
Or Whole Foods. Yeah.
Yeah. Brittany raises an excellent point in the Discord. We can always argue if the president can have 34 felonies, then what's a little fraud? But yeah,
Dog
Andrew,
eat
people
dog
are
world.
inspired by your crimes.
Oh, good.
In here.
My crimes. All right, here's
Hey,
everybody's
but-
homework for the week. Let's all order one high-priced item from a retailer of your choice. After it comes in, say, oopsies, it never actually showed up. What am I to do? And I don't want it anymore. So can I just have the money back, please? Don't send me another one. I'm kidding. Don't do that. That's bad.
Yeah, I was going to come on and give the like legal disclaimer of like, this is not actual shopping advice from Millennial Show.
Right.
We do not support fraud. Don't blame us.
Yeah, it's just with the big retailers, I have a hard time drumming up sympathy. I could use a free gift from them. I've given them enough of my money. I deserve a little
Listen.
treat here and there.
Listen, if these refund policies were actually affecting the bottom line in any kind of tangible way, they'd change it. They probably will eventually. So
Yeah.
enjoy it
true.
while it lasts.
Yeah. Exactly. Sometimes you catch on to tricks way too late and you're like, damn, I wish I knew about this sooner. So go ahead and jump onto this now. Anyway, I didn't say any of this. My name's Pam, if anybody is wondering who was encouraging this behavior.
Wow, throwing Pam under the bus. Okay.
Let's talk about something a little more wholesome, Laura.
Yeah. So do y'all remember Barnes and Noble?
Yes.
I have so many memories of Barnes and Noble, particularly for midnight book releases, but also I just felt like it was a much more common place to go when I was a lot younger. I feel like it's a lot harder now to make the time to go into a Barnes and Noble because it's so easy to order books and have them delivered to my doorstep. But, we thought that Barnes and Noble seemed like they were doomed as a brick and mortar store because of Amazon's dominance. But Barnes and Noble is kind of popping off now, apparently. They are set to open 60 new bookstores in 2025, which is really significant given that in 2024, they opened 57 stores across the US. So prior to last year, Barnes and Noble's brick and mortar stores had been declining in numbers for like a decade and a half. And in a statement announcing this year's plans, Barnes and Noble also stated that last year they opened more new locations in a single year than they had in the decade between 2009 and 2019. So really notable to see them adding more brick and mortar stores at a time when it seems like places are shrinking their footprint.
It's really
in terms
shocking.
of the brick and mortar.
Yeah, because, and we continue to see this thanks to big retailers like Amazon. But for a while, it looked like Amazon was just going to kill Barnes & Noble and indie bookstores everywhere. And of course, sadly, indie bookstores have really gotten hit by Amazon's dominance, and Barnes & Noble's for that matter. But the turnaround here is very interesting. And why are they popping off, Laura?
Yeah, so they told Fast Company that there are 3 major factors that are contributing to their ability to open more stores than ever. The first would be the rise in book talk, which I know we've talked about a lot on this show. And as a matter of fact, when you visit many Barnes & Noble locations, you'll often see a book talk section. Has anyone here seen those? I haven't been to a Barnes & Noble in a minute, so.
We just went a couple weeks ago, and there's a whole section.
Yeah, that makes me happy. It's fun seeing the internet bleed into traditional brick and mortar stores. And you won't just see book talk like areas. You'll see areas just dedicated to recent trending events, news, hashtags. It's cool how they respond to what is happening online. And it's such a good idea because if you're walking into Barnes & Noble, you need some recommendations. And what better recommendations than the ones that everybody's raving about online? And then you can be a part of that online conversation.
Yeah, it's probably kind of exciting too if, let's say, you are really deep in the book talk world and you don't have any like real life friends that you can talk about it with. And, you know, you don't have that engagement in your day to day to walk into your local Barnes & Noble and see a thing that you know exists and is real right there in front of you that is garnering so much attention. That probably feels good. And, you know, with book talk in mind, I thought we could talk about its impact on the bookseller industry and wondering if we found ourselves swept up in book talk.
Can you believe Pat is still not on TikTok?
I have never downloaded the app. It's never touched my phone.
But do you get book recommendations on Instagram because you are a big reader? Yeah.
Yeah.
What do they call it on Instagram? Bookgram?
Oh, well, they just all convert over from TikTok. So,
they
and now with the whole
still.
TikTok stuff, everything is only maybe like a day late to Instagram now, not a week. So,
oh, sure.
But no, I follow hashtags like the book or like popular books right now, like that kind of stuff. So.
I really like the book talk recommendations. I'll hang on when I'm seeing a book talk video. I see video lists like 5 books I will never forget or 5 books that move me to tears, stuff like that. And I like reading the gay stuff. So TikTok is mainly feeding me those types of videos. And then I'll make some notes to myself or I'll bookmark that video and then come back to it later if I'm looking for new recommendations.
Yeah, usually I immediately put them in my story graph. Now that I switched from Goodreads to story graph because it's better, I immediately just put it in my want to read when I see those kind of things.
Laura, do you dabble in book talk?
You know, I don't as much as I should, but I will say I have really enjoyed seeing people's reactions to Onyx Storm. The third in the Empyrean series that just came out a couple of weeks ago. I think, Andrew, I might have sent you 1 or 2, where it's basically like a if you know, you know type video. So they're depicting various moments from Onyx Storm with no context. And it's just one of those things where you have to have read the book to understand the joke. And there are so many great theories floating around on Book Talk as well. There's a lot of literary analysis that's happening there. So I should really honestly pay more attention to it. So yeah, I should definitely pay more attention to that. But before we get to the next reason, this is actually a perfect spot to plug. We just did our Onyx Storm reactions episode over on What the Hype last week, and the episode is out now, so you should please go check that out. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts, and we have a video version up on YouTube.
It was a good episode, I will say.
Thank
I agree
you.
with a lot. Yeah, there was some things I was like, I'm surprised I didn't talk about this, but
The thing is,
good. It was very
there's
good.
so much to talk about. I feel like
Yes.
we could have probably multiple episodes about Onyx Storm.
Yeah, and that episode was an hour, so that was just like 3 or 4 things we focused on. So
Yeah. But another reason that Barnes & Noble gave for opening up so many more brick and mortar locations is a rise in desire for more third spaces. And I know we've talked about third spaces quite a bit on the show. We actually just discussed them a few episodes ago, but we've certainly chatted about them in the past. And I thought that we could ask the Discord to sound off here while we chat through some of these points. Does Barnes & Noble feel like a third space to y'all? Like, would you use Barnes & Noble as a third space? I really want to know. Personally, because it's just hard for me to imagine it as a third space. I feel like if I go to Barnes & Noble, I'm going with a mission to buy something and I'm going to buy it and maybe I'll stop and have a cup of coffee at the cafe, maybe. But then I'll probably go home and get in my comfy clothes and, make that my third space.
I used to actually, like in college and when I first moved to Chicago, because there was a Barnes & Noble fairly close to my first apartment in Chicago. So I would go there and I would like apply for jobs and sit and like grab a book and read in the cafe if I wanted to. Or like if, let's say I needed to kill a half an hour before going to a movie, like just bring my book along with me and sit there for a little bit in the cafe. So I love doing that, or finding like a secluded corner, like on the second level, like in the back, and just like sit quietly back there. It was very nice.
Sometimes you will see people literally sitting on the floor in a Barnes & Noble reading, and that's really cute. Some do have chairs too. The flagship store in LA at the Grove, I know they have a lot of seating there. We were in there recently, actually. But Shane's bringing up a good point, and I heard this about the new Barnes & Noble in Vegas too. They opened one of these ones that Laura was describing at the top of this, and it doesn't have a cafe. And Shane's saying a lot of the newer stores don't have the sitting areas either. So it's interesting that they're still hoping to be a third space when a lot of these newer stores are actually smaller ones. Maybe they're imagining scenarios where people are just hanging around in the aisles as a third space, but maybe also a reason Barnes & Noble is able to expand more is because they're opening up smaller stores that in theory might cost less to rent, and thus they can afford opening more. So I don't know how that's going to work.
I wonder why. Like they were partnered with Starbucks. You'd think Starbucks would want to still have a cafe in them.
I wonder if they're trying to go for more of a smaller bookshop vibe.
Yeah.
Rather, because the store,
nice.
I mean, I remember Barnes & Noble being huge. I mean, to your point, Pat, some of them were multiple stories. So it's really hard to walk into a shop like that and feel like you're in a cute little cozy bookshop. Maybe that's what they're going for here. But
that's
like,
a good point.
To the point that was raised, though, like, how do you turn that into a third space if there's not room for people to use it that way?
Bring your own lawn chair to Barnes & Noble. What would they do? All right, that's homework for everybody this week as well. Bring a lawn chair to Barnes & Noble and see what happens. We have chairs that rock back and forth, too.
Oh,
lawn
very
chairs?
Nice.
Yeah, I could be cozy for hours in that at a small Barnes & Noble with no seating for me.
But that was one of my favorite parts, too. Like, the one that I would go to in Chicago, it had big windows that looked out on the street, and there were like puffy leather chairs along those windows that looked out onto the street. So it was like, it was so comfortable just to like sit there and either work or just read and relax.
Yeah. I'd be willing to try Barnes & Noble as a third space again. We do have one somewhat close by. The problem is these older ones, the cafe is just a little too 90s for me, and not in a good nostalgic way that makes me feel cozy. Even, I mentioned we went to this Barnes & Noble in LA at the Grove a few weeks ago, and they had redone it since the last time we were in there, and it's beautiful what they did with it. Clean, very organized, very modern. All the bookcases have the genres very large across the top of them, so you can easily at a glance from even a distance see where certain genres are. However, I don't know if it was complete yet, but the coffee shop at this Barnes & Noble it looks like a doctor's office now. It's sterile as hell. There's not even art in it anymore. I'm just hoping it's not complete, but I was like really disappointed by that.
I'm just reading over some of the responses we have in Discord. This one really tickles me. Rebecca says, ever since I found out it was common for people to pee in the chairs, it's been a hard pass for me. The chairs at Barnes & Noble. So I don't know this. I don't know this for a fact because I've never worked at a Barnes & Noble. But I have worked in a retail establishment that had a certain like round shaped chair for children at like a children's table, and can confirm kids had accidents on those all the time. So I would not recommend sitting on them. I don't think most of the stores have those anymore, but yeah.
That's
so this
gross.
is yet another reason for me to bring my own lawn chair to any third space.
Make the chair's lawn again.
Make the chairs clean again.
Another reason that Barnes & Noble gave, kind of related to that desire for third spaces, just loneliness and isolation being at an all-time high, which makes people wanting to be in those third spaces, to be around like-minded people a thing. Yeah. And I think that's real. I think that we've talked on this show quite a bit about how it can feel hard to know like where to go and network with people who are similarly minded with you nowadays, because third spaces are a lot, more few and far between.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. And I think whenever I'm in a bookstore, I feel so inspired to read while I'm in there. The smell of all the books, the other people browsing the shelves, reading all the back covers to motivate you to buy the book, all the beautiful front covers. I've gotten better with reading over the last year or two. But when I do walk out of the bookstore, I lose some of that inspiration to read. I'm just like eager to read when I'm in there, and then I get out and I kind of lose that. That said, I think feeling inspired to read and seeing other people with the passion for reading in these stores does help combat loneliness, because you're seeing like-minded people share a similar interest as you.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun seeing like people walking around if they have a stack of books, and it's like if someone is all one genre, or like if they have a mix, and you're like kind of seeing what their interests are. It's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, kind of to bring us home here in our book conversation, wanted to gauge how everyone is reading nowadays. Do we still prefer physical books, or have we transitioned over to e-reads or audiobooks? Personally, I have found that I really like, and it costs a lot more money, but I really like having the physical copy and an audiobook. I like listening to the audiobook while I'm reading the physical book.
Do they ever offer discounts for buying both? Because if they did
not that I've seen,
like a bundle
they're
discount,
never on the same platform. That's usually why,
Yeah.
If they did that, I'd be more inclined, because Laura, I love that idea, reading for a while, and then let's say, I got to go walk Brooklyn, but I don't want to put the book down. I just pick up the audiobook right where I left off. And I think Amazon does have, is it called Whisper Sync? Your Kindle and your audiobook can stay in sync, I believe. Don't quote me on that.
I don't have a Kindle. I don't have a Kindle.
Oh, okay. But yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Pat.
I was going to say, I prefer physical books for sure. The main reason is like if you have the book and you end up not liking it, and it's not one you want to keep, then you can resell it. Like I was thinking about it the other day, and first off, I miss my Nook. I had a Nook from Barnes & Noble, and way better than a Kindle, hands down. But
really,
I switched over. Because I ended up doing an iPad, so I could do Apple Books, Kindle, and Nook all in one. Now I have a Kindle, but I realized like in my Nook, I have at least 30 books, and like the entire Shadowhunter series that I loved reading back in the day. Like I don't know if I'm going to read them again, but now they're just stuck there, and I can't sell them. I can't make my money back on them. Even partially, even if it was $3 of the 12 that I paid for each book. So like that's
it's
just
a good
ton
reminder. It's a good reminder of physical media is superior because all this digital media is fleeting. no matter
But
the device or company.
yeah. But it is great when you're traveling to be able to have a couple books with you rather than just one.
Yeah.
Like that is really nice.
I brought a hardback with me over our vacation, and that added a lot of extra weight to my book bag. That wasn't fun to tote around.
No, it does. And actually, Pat, you mentioning, the ability to sell books when you're done with them. I feel like I'm someone who constantly has too many books for the amount of space that we have here. And I feel like I'm in a constant debate with myself about how do I purge? What do I do with these books?
I think I'll speak for both of us, Pat. What books we really care about, like the Fourth Wing series, we'll keep those. Those are fun. Yeah. We're really into them. They look nice on a shelf. But there's some books you read once and you're like, I'm glad I read this, but do I need this for the rest of my life? No. But this is another check in the physical media is superior column, because you can have these beautiful bookcases maybe behind you in your camera shot or just in the television room, and it makes the room feel cozier. There's a lot to be said for having a bookshelf or two just filled with books that you love most in your home.
Yeah.
And you never get that type of feeling with ebooks. It's just like why vinyl is still hot, because people like to display them.
Yeah. And there's some books like I bought one a few years ago. I absolutely hated it. And I was like, I need this off my shelf. It does not need to go back on the shelf. Hell no, sell this. But I would say maybe once a year we'll bring a stack of books to like a local bookstore that will rebuy them if they don't have enough or whatever. And like we'll get rid of some. You don't get a lot for them, but at least it's going to somebody else to read.
Yeah. I need to do this. I will say we recently did an audit of all of the physical books that we had, and we had way too much for this little small space. So we identified the ones that we don't need to have on the shelves, and we put them in this giant plastic bin. I mean, this is a plastic bin that like an adult human could comfortably sit down in. And we took it to Mark's mom's because she has a big basement. So thank you, Mark's mom, for storing all of our books.
That's actually
I'll figure out what to do with them one day.
That's actually a good After Dark tie-in, because we're going to be talking about our parents pushing stuff off on us as we age. And parents say, I don't want this crap anymore. You take it. And you're like, me? I have no room for this.
Yeah, I have an 800 square foot apartment. What are you talking about?
But I will say it's not crazy easy to sell used books either. I've had a couple of books on eBay for months now. It keeps relisting. I can't move it. Lucky Dog Lessons, Train Your Dog in 7 Days by Brandon something or other. We bought it to train Finn. It's a good book. He was a good trainer. 99 cents on eBay. Nobody wants it. And you run into this problem too when you try to sell used books at some, like Pat mentioned, used bookstores. They'll look at some and be like, I don't want this. We've tried to sell some of the Robert Galbraith books, the J.K. Rowling detective books. Yeah. They have so many, they don't want any more. They're not moving them.
Having trouble selling them, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Wow. Oh, darn.
Our community has a yard sale twice a year, so we have been lucky moving some books that way. But it's not a guarantee putting these books on eBay that they will sell. I guess I need to buy better books.
Or some are just so popular that everybody has them already. Like that's part of it too, I think.
Listeners, if any of you want Lucky Dog Lessons, Train Your Dog in 7 Days by Brandon McMillan, I'll send it to you for free. Free. Let me know.
It'll actually cost Andrew money.
Yeah. Is there an option on eBay? I will pay somebody to take this off my hands at this point. Because damn, I'm tired of looking at this.
Have you tried to send it back to Amazon? Try to return
It's a good idea. I think we actually did buy it from Amazon, so that could work.
I might have, yeah.
If only I bought it from Costco. They'd probably still take it back. Well, like I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, coming up in After Dark today, we're going to talk about dealing with your childhood goods. We're at that point in our lives where our parents are starting to push this stuff on us that they've been holding on forever. So we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about stuff in our house that we wonder if we'll keep forever. And we asked patrons this question too. We got a lot of responses. What's one item from your childhood, like a personal item that you still possess that you'll never get rid of? The number one thing, what can you not get rid of? We'll talk about all this in After Dark this week.
Become our favorite pal over at patreon.com/millennial so you can tune into that installment of After Dark. Once you support us, you will be able to listen to those weekly gossip sessions, which we're also recognizing as our podcasting safe space in your favorite podcast app.
You'll also be able to hang out with us on Zoom once a month. You'll get ad-free episodes. You can hear old episodes of Smart Mouths. You can listen to recordings of Pam, Lauren, and I calling each other monthly. You can listen in on our planning meetings, all kinds of things. We offer lots of benefits because we really appreciate your support. And it's very easy to get started. Patreon offers a 7-day free trial and annual subscription discounts. If you're an Apple Podcast user, you can get Just After Dark and ad-free episodes by tapping into the show and signing up for Mega Millennial. Time for some recommendations. What do you have for us, Laura?
So based on, the fact that the Department of Education is getting gutted, I would highly recommend, if you are someone who has federal student loan debt, go ahead and go to studentaid.gov and download your loan history. You can do this by logging in and clicking My Aid and then clicking the Download My Aid data button. This will basically give you a breakdown of your student loans, where they currently stand, what your outstanding amounts due are, et cetera, et cetera. Even before Trump, we've seen so many cases of people's loans getting sold off to different loan servicers, and there have been reported cases of discrepancies and payments not being recorded, so the amounts being off when they get transferred. I can only imagine, with all this bullshit that's going on, it is possible that the same could happen here again. So I think downloading your financial aid data would be a really good idea at this point.
So in light of our discussion today about books and saying to hell to you, Amazon, I wanted to recommend bookshop.org. This is a website where you can order books, and by ordering through this website, you will also get to pick a local bookstore to support when you make the purchase through bookshop.org. So this is just a great way to support indie booksellers. But the reason I'm recommending it this week is because they just announced they're now selling ebooks. So if you don't want to buy through Kindle, you can now support independent bookstores by purchasing ebooks on bookshop.org. And then you can read the ebooks through their website or through the bookshop.org apps. So this is a great new way to avoid Amazon, particularly if you are into ebooks.
Speaking of, or keeping on theme with books too, I wanted to recommend The Cerulean Chronicles by T.J. Klune. I read the first one, or I finished the first one as we were on the cruise earlier, and they're like an adult book with like some magic in it. It's basically a, I guess, quote unquote, like social worker who has to go to schools for magical children to see if they are getting the education and safety that they need. It's so sweet. It's so heartwarming. I was like crying. I was laughing. I giggled a lot in it. The first book was amazing. I haven't read the second yet. Some friends here adore the second one. The first book is called The House on the Cerulean Sea, and the second book is Somewhere Beyond the Sea. And they're just absolutely adorable books that I think anyone would love.
All right, a couple more reminders for the pals. Visit shop.millennialshow.com to pick up official Millennial swag. This is our latest and greatest way to support us and show off that you are Millennial AF.
You can also support us by following the show in your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. And please, please, please leave us a review. You can also leave comments wherever you follow us or email millennialshow@gmail.com. Millennialshow.com is where you'll find links to our various platforms and notes on what we've discussed today.
Pat, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate you hopping on, kind of last minute too, but we thought you'd be good for today's discussion given the topic. So thanks. Was this the best birthday present ever?
Thank you for having me. I love
he
being
didn't
on
say
with you
it.
guys.
It's always a pleasure.
He was like, the bars in Palm Springs were better than this. But yeah, thanks.
Listen, I wasn't getting free drinks tonight.
No, it's true. Yeah, I'm going out tonight too without him. So I'll get you a free drink tomorrow night, maybe. Oh no, you're not. You're going to be out tomorrow night. Well, we'll figure it out later.
Ships crossing in the night.
Yeah.
Who's going to buy who a drink?
Well, wait
After
till
Dark's-
Friday. It's Valentine's Day.
True, but I got plans with someone that day that isn't you, and I'm not kidding.
Oh, well, fine.
Oh.
I'll just hang out with the dogs.
Yikes. Maybe we should move over to After Dark for this conversation.
Laura's like, get a room. After Dark starts in a moment for patrons and Apple Podcast subscribers. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I'm Andrew.
I'm Laura.
And I'm Pat.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.